We're going to transition just for a few minutes before lunch, and so I want you to stay engaged. If you look at your program and you open your program up, this is the implementation. There are 6 implementation teams that were developed. And each of those teams have been working since the last Talent Forum on the things that we said we need to take place here. So they're going to come, and each team have been given about 5 minutes. Is that right, Sam? 5 minutes to come and say, this is where we are on the work we said we were going to do to present back. Now, the work doesn't stop with them just working. They are taking that work to other places for implementation, whether it's OneSpartanburg, whether it's a school district, all of those types of places. So I'm going to have Jeff to come, our dean for the George Dean Johnson Jr. College of Business Economics. He's going to start us off and facilitate this work.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and ask our team leads to go ahead and head up this way because we are going to move quickly through this information. But thank you, Dr. Harris. I think you will find, again, as Dr. Harris mentioned, in your catalog, and if you reflect back to last year, these were the 6 findings that came out of last year's Talent Forum. And along with Dr. Sam Cooper and Dr. Kaleem Islam, we were charged with pulling together implementation teams to make progress against those findings. So if you go all the way back to the start of the day, Dr. Harris mentioned that really this isn't about a one-day event today, it's about us living into this and moving these forward. So we've been fortunate to pull together 6 project teams. I'm not going to read all of the names up here. You'll see that there are 43 folks from K-12, from higher education, from our community organizations, from industry that have come together to work on those findings. And I think you're going to see that we're addressing a lot of the things that came up in Matt's presentation. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have short 5-minute presentations from each of the teams. We may or may not have time for questions at the end, but I'd encourage you to reach out to us or to any of the team members if you have questions. And of course, if you're interested in getting involved with an implementation team, please let us know. We're always looking to grow and expand. The first 4 teams you will hear from have been established since about March and have had a little bit longer of a runway to work with. Our last 2 teams have been established more recently, so if you notice a difference there in terms of where we're at in progress, that is why. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Amy Driggers, who is going to talk about our early career exposure team.
Good morning, everyone. I am Amy Driggers. I'm the Director of Secondary Education in Spartanburg District 1. I've worked with 7th through 12th graders for the last 20 years, which I believe deserves a little preemptive applause before we do anything else today. It's been the joy of my life working with those students. Much has stayed the same since we were, diagramming sentences and doing Saxon math back when we were all in school. But there's a lot that has changed. And much of what has changed is in what students value, how they make decisions, what things help them to grow. And so to that end, that helps us to understand that their career planning has changed. And we've got to be a little more proactive in our work there, which leads us to our discussion on early career. Initially, one of the things we wanted to understand is what are schools currently doing that's working? Because until you can understand what students are doing, until we can understand how they are interacting with the materials that they're learning from, you can't move forward. So we surveyed all the districts in the region, including all the 7 Spartanburg districts, Union, and Cherokee County, I believe, and got some information. We wanted to find out, what are you using? How is it working? Let's see here. We're going to explore those methods that they're using in middle and high schools to find out what's working. We wanted to identify language. What we're finding is that we're not using common language, which is interrupting our ability to work closely with our business partners because we're using different languages but talking about the same things. So we're working on trying to create some common language and marketing tools that will help us bridge these gaps and determine also, what is the labor market? How are we using that data? Do we have our finger on the pulse of our community? Or are we looking at things that may be applicable in other areas of the country? We want to analyze the needs for those so that we can provide y'all both authentic and fluid exposures, not things that are watch this video and comment on it, and also provide informative and enlightening experiences for our kids. The second portion here, y'all, is to promote that collaboration between industry and K-12. The main ways that we do that are providing, I consider these appetizers. What are some little appetizers that students can get by going on job shadowing days, by going to career tours of career centers, so they can understand the different types of training that they may need to proceed in a career pathway. And then to expand work-based learning. Y'all, that is critical. If you'll indulge me just for a quick moment, we have got to provide sustained and expanded exposure to careers. These first two appetizers are not the meal, but that's where we spend most of our time with our kids. That's why people like me end up in medical school making all A's and hating every second. There are people like me who gave up a Truman Scholarship and study abroad to get to medical school and hate every single second. And thankfully, through some very serendipitous events, I ended up in education. But I spent 5 years without a rudder. I would have known immediately that's not the place for me had I spent some time there. Because having the capacity and even the skills is not sufficient when you're choosing a career. You also have to have the disposition. And I think that those are things that these can only be gained for our students through expanding their opportunities. And to that end, we want to follow a model. Okay, I think the slides that I have are slightly different, but we had basically a pyramid that is going to show you basically the means. In our slides originally, we had a pyramid that showed career awareness in the students who were in middle school. Let them pick. If they still think they're going to be NBA players in the 7th grade, that's all right. They might be, some do. But helping them to narrow that by the time they get into 9th and 10th grade to things where their skills and their disposition match. And then lastly, in the 11th and 12th grade, getting to those work-based learning opportunities where they can actually have focused experiences that are concentrated not only on skills, but things like the Profile of South Carolina Graduate, those competencies, so that we are basically providing the right fit for your industries in our community. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Tanya Boone. I'm the Dean of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences at USC Upstate. And I feel like I didn't catch her name, I apologize. And Matt teed me up to talk about experiential education, which we've been referring to as work-based learning. So our group was actually led by Taylor Dement from OneSpartanburg, but he couldn't be here today because he's at a conference in Philly. So we're the implementation team on experiential learning. And so based on input from the first Talent Forum, our team developed 4 priority areas to advance our goal of increasing experiential and work-based learning for our community. So our first priority was to identify and encourage best practices in training for recruiting and developing work-based learning among employers. So the idea is, what are the best practices that the employers need to have? What are the best practices that the workers or the students might be going into the work-based learning environment? And what are the best practices that we in the education world need to have so that we can increase the number of those opportunities and the number of people taking advantage of those? Our second priority was to formalize feedback from employers to educators. So we want to be able to create formal feedback mechanisms between the employers and the educators, and that includes K-12 and higher ed, so that we can teach the skills that are needed by employers, and we heard a lot about that already from our keynote speakers, and also just to foster those talent pipelines locally. Our third priority was about standardizing the education of the skills. And our previous team, it sounded like they were talking about some of the same things we were talking about we need to be using the same language, and we need to be talking about the same skills so that we're all on the same page about what education provides, what skills, and what skills are needed in our community. And we spent most of our time on our fourth priority, which is why I put it at the end, which is we want to see Spartanburg have a talent portal where talent developers, who are the educators, and talent seekers, who are the employers, have a way to connect so that we can place students, young people, or talent seeker or talent looking for work so that they can get into these work-based learning internship type experiences. So as we talked about a talent portal, we talked about what would a talent portal that we'd be happy with look like. No. So what we wanted to do is be able to map from cradle to career. So start kids out as early as junior high. What do you think you want to do? I have a son at home, he's 17. He thinks he wants to be a welder. Okay, it's not my first choice for him, but that's okay. He gets to do what he wants because he's giant. So what would that look like for him? What kind of experiences is he going to need to have if that's his goal? If his goal was to be an engineer, it would look different, but we want some sort of portal or some sort of platform that would help him or anybody like him figure out what does that pathway look like. We also want a portal that can be used by the whole community, not just higher ed, not just employers, not just the public schools, but the whole community. We also want a portal that emphasizes career skills, training, and certifications. So some sort of map that tells us, okay, these are the skills you need, these are the certifications you're going to need, and this is the way to get there. So a true map. And then we want something that has feedback mechanisms that tells us, okay, that's, you've done this, and maybe you need to pivot a little bit, or maybe we want something that would have some assessments in it that would say, this is where your skill really lies, or where your interest really lies, and give a student or a young person that feedback, or maybe a returning adult. So we looked at a bunch of these things, and we found one called Career Highways that we really, really like. Because it has all of those things. It does all of those things. And one of the things it does that we really like is it really levels the playing field. Anybody can use it. So a person who has a lot of social capital could use it, but a person who has very little social capital could use it. And we believe that a portal like Career Highways that could be available to the whole community would really help us achieve those other goals that I talked about at the beginning. So that's kind of where we ended up, and we're excited about going forward and continuing to look at that particular product and other products like it, but it was our favorite.
All right, let's see if I can use it. Nope. There we are. Wouldn't we love that? So hi, I'm Dr. Erin Smith, and I'm the Director of Adult Degree Reengagement for OneSpartanburg, Inc. Our implementation team was charged with the scaling of Redegree, which was surprising to me because I'm like, well, let's build it first. So we had to build it. Redegree officially launched in April of this year, but I was hired last September to kind of build the framework and hire a staff to implement this initiative. So Redegree is a degree attainment initiative led by, well, me, through OneSpartanburg, Inc., supported by Movement 2030 and Spartanburg Academic Movement. And we've been charged with re-engaging the 4950 or 51,000, depending on what you read, some college no degree individuals here in Spartanburg County. So this is a Spartanburg County economic mobility initiative to help re-engage those stop outs. And so part of that was to look at what we needed to do, what kind of supports we needed to have in place in order to re-engage these individuals and also support them through to graduation by eliminating barriers, figuring out what happened the first time or second or third time that they tried to go to college, and then make sure that those things do not get into their way again. So one of our exciting things is we actually have our first graduate already. We weren't projected to have a graduate for at least 2 to 3 years, so we're super thrilled to have a graduate this past August. Her name is Kimberly Anderson, and she went to Converse. She actually stopped out of Converse about 5 years ago with only one class remaining. one class remaining, but she had a lot of life stuff get in the way. She don't mind telling me. She got divorced. She has 2 teen daughters, and she just simply could not afford to go back to finish that one class. So when she went to a paraprofessionals meeting through her school district and heard about Redegree, she took us up on our offer to support her and help her to finish her degree. And so when it came down to what it would take to get her to re-enroll, I asked, well, what do you need? And she's like, I can't afford to finish this last class. And so I said, well, how much can you afford? And she gave me that amount. And because of the financial support that we have through Movement 2030, we were able to pay the rest of that balance. And so I was looking at a study, and it said that 58% of respondents from this study said that their current financial situation wouldn't allow them to return to college as a stop out. 72% of them cited that affordable tuition is a necessary factor in them determining whether or not they would re-enroll. So if we didn't have this support, we would not have been able to re-enroll Kimberly and to graduate her. And the cool thing about this is right now she is a teacher's assistant at one of our local schools, and she has applied to the Masters of Teaching program at Converse to hopefully become a fully certified teacher so that she can then change her economic situation for herself and for her daughter. So we're super proud of her. Thanks. So to talk about Redegree, and this is not a reflection on Jeffrey at all, but these numbers are different because our numbers change really by the hour if you talk to one of my navigators. But right now we have re-engaged 505 individuals, so we're a little bit over 10% of our goal of 5,000 that we need to re-engage. Yay, us. Right now we have 83 students who have re-enrolled, and the significance of those numbers is if you look nationally at those individuals who are most likely to re-enroll on their own organically, it's only about 2.6%. But with the intervention of our college navigators, and I have 2, they're over there, y'all wave. Our college navigators, with their intervention, we actually have a conversion rate of 16.4% from re-engaged to re-enroll. So that just lets you know the difference of individualized, customized, I like to say the concierge approach to re-engagement with full wraparound support, services, and financial support. So we also have, for our students, most of them tend to go to Spartanburg Community College, USC Upstate, Spartanburg Methodist College, Converse University. We have some at Liberty University, and we also have some students at Limestone. So we're super proud of our individuals who have re-engaged. Now, in terms of the scaling of Redegree, we have talked about third-party support to come in with technology, possibly AI, to assist with scaling this because it is very labor-intensive. It takes a lot of hours and a lot of conversation. The national average is about 47 touches per student to re-enroll them, just to get them to re-enroll. That doesn't include any of the additional support that we do for our students while they're going back to school, because some students have a longer road ahead of them. Some students have a shorter road ahead of them. But either way, we're super proud of the progress that we've been able to make so far, and we look forward to scaling this so that we can reach that number of 5,000 re-engaged, because this isn't just about economic mobility for our students, it's about economic development for our community. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Carrie Silver, and I'm excited to talk to you today about some projects that I think will really align with what we're talking about today. It was good timing because these projects also were in the same time we were discovering what we wanted our Office of Continuing Education to do. So I'm proud to report some of the things we're doing. So one of the things that we know that we need more of are credentials for our professionals who are already out in the community. And if you were here last year, we were talking heavily about manufacturing and what kind of micro-credentials we could create for manufacturing organizations in the community. And we're extremely lucky to have BMW as a partner, and Karis Cohen in the back there. Is definitely to credit for a lot of this hard work. So we started out by saying what's being done really well in manufacturing, in upskilling and training. And what's being done really well is the hands-on skills. So if you're coming in and you need to know how to do something, that training exists. Or if you're on the upper level and you want to excel, there's one-on-one mentoring support. What was really lacking was that level of somebody who's going from a deskless job to manager. We need more training there. So we talked with folks from BMW Talent Development, HR, figured out what their values were and how we could turn that into a training that could help folks be really successful in managerial roles. And some of those skills are focused on building teams, emotional intelligence as a leader, how to deal with conflict. Some of the skills that our speaker talked about before that are really critical if you're going to lead a successful team. We're also including an element of understanding how your supervisors, your bosses make decisions. We have this strategic plan, why? Instead of rolling your eyes, you can understand a little bit more about where it's coming from and be part of the future development. We are fortunate that BMW is partnering with us with the understanding that this can be replicated for other manufacturers moving forward. So while we are focusing with them as our client and making sure it fits their needs, it's something that we can take and replicate rather easily to other manufacturers in the community. Another program that we're working on is a partnership with OneSpartanburg. Their program, Power Up, that supports small and minority business leaders, has a really strong foundation for bringing individuals in, having mentoring, helping them figure out financing, funding. But we had the then what question. And what we did was we talked to the mentors and said, what are you seeing as the skills that we could really share with these business owners that could help get them to the next level? And from that, we created a 5-course credential for them. And it's self-paced. We looked at the skills that were needed and identified the courses that would help them get to where they needed to go and still be robust enough to have us be okay putting our stamp of approval on it. We also understand that everybody's coming in at different levels. So some folks may have a staff of 10 that they've worked with, and some folks may never have hired before. Some folks may have dealt with payroll before. Some might be new to them. So we have the ability to offer some flexibility, different level courses. Students can also contact me directly, and we can say, you know what, you got that down, but you're trying to figure out e-commerce. Let's shake that up a little bit and get you the credential that you need. Again, this is something that we are excited is finding success, so we can hopefully replicate it again in the future. So hopefully next year we're going to have even more to report. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Heath Flood. I'm in business development for Loop Recruiting here in Spartanburg, and we met on the importance of mentorships. Hold on a second, I'm sorry. Y'all weren't wrong. It does not get there itself. But the inventory of current mentorship programs in the region and established a template to guide the startup of new programs and mentorship programs for the future. If you look around, I think one thing we all take advantage of in this area is how special it is and how many resources we have. Spartanburg in particular, I'm always amazed. But we identified the type of mentorship programs, any gaps in those programs, and sort of the setting those expectations and the goals. So one thing is you can't drop it in and just pray it works. You have to have some sort of system in place, and everybody has some expectation levels of where they need to be, who they need to be with, some goals and procedures. And one thing is, not everybody is the same as the other. Many people don't actively seek out a mentor. It's a little bit out of their comfort level, their comfort zone. So I think companies adopting that and really owning it and making sure that everybody has a seat at the table. I think we've heard it a million times. We're going to hear it a million times. Retention, retention, retention. It's great to get these people through the door, but to keep them is a whole different ballgame. So we really just need to see where are our skill gaps. Develop anything that anybody needs. Somebody might want to be a leader. Somebody may just want somebody to help them through the company to be included. Any onboarding, recruiting, transfer of knowledge and retention is super important. I think that there's a lot of value in peer-to-peer relationships. There's a lot of value in senior to junior, but making sure that everybody's not like my 2-year-old and saying mine, mine when it comes to knowledge is how we all win. And then identify any flexible and adaptable frameworks. So that's great, we have a system in place, but things change, people change, schedules change. Are we being malleable to everybody's part in the organization and part in the mentorship? You know, I think it's important to have companies, like I said, own it and match them to folks. So I'm going to use the dreaded love language, but make sure that everybody is matched with somebody who that they can really grow with, can build trust, can build rapport, feel included in the company, really going to help them grow in whatever way, shape, or form that is. Because again, if someone doesn't feel like they have a buy-in to your company, they're absolutely not going to stay. But if they do, then they will have, again, some ownership into their team, some buy-in to their team as well. So I think one of the main things that we chatted on was, you know, getting other companies bought into this. I know our company goes to Meeting Street Academy. It gives all of us some form of collaboration. We can chat about it. It also gives us some give back as well. And they do a really great job. And I believe some ways that they format it are some ways that a lot of us can format it within our 4 walls as well. So am I good on time? Okay. Thank you so much.
Good morning. I'm Leah Blanton. I work with Find Great People in business development. I was a member of a team that was tasked with the topic of creating inclusive work environments. And at the end of the day, we are just talking about company culture, which really flows very well from what Heath was just talking about from mentorship. But as we began our discussions, it became pretty clear to us that our end product would be somewhat different from some of the other teams. It's hard to quantify company culture. But a friend of mine, a colleague of mine who was in the room, standing in the back, Dennis, often says that culture is king. It's an organization's personality, its work environment. Every company has a culture. It's the collective beliefs that shape the employees' behavior. There are companies with great culture. There are companies that they have a culture that could be better, maybe mediocre, maybe it's stagnant, not very inspiring. And then we all know companies that have a pretty bad culture, pretty toxic culture. So whether you have a good culture or a bad culture, it affects your employees. It affects the employees' attitudes at work. It affects their relationships with one another. And it affects overall effectiveness and productivity. So when we speak of bridging the talent gap, you have to consider what is your company's culture. Because like I said, it affects everything: recruitment, employee development, and retention. First and foremost, you need to recognize what your culture is today. Is it where you want it to be? Do you want it to improve? If so, you can make changes to make that happen. You can start with open communication and transparency. We use the word truth and transparency a lot when you're speaking about company culture. It is important to note that if you are hiring currently, potential candidates want to hear about your culture, especially if they've experienced a toxic culture in the past. It becomes even more important to join an organization with a positive work environment. So they want to know, what are the team dynamics? Do team members engage with one another? Are they friends? Do employees have access to senior management? Do managers have regular meetings with their employees to inform them what's going on within their company? Are your benefits competitive? We always joke at FGP, do you offer pet insurance? It's kind of a running joke amongst our colleagues, but that is something that's small. Everybody has a pet these days, and we treat them like they're our babies. So it's something that's really small. It's no sweat off your back. It doesn't cost you anything, but if you offer it to your employees, they think it's a gift. So it's the little things that go a long way. Also, with your current employees, how are you managing your current employees? Are you coaching them? Are you developing them and helping them grow? Or are you micromanaging? I think we all know which one is the positive work environment there. And then lastly, are you giving your employees a voice? Do they feel heard at work? Do you promote a culture of trust, transparency, and truth? The 3 T's again. It all goes back to communication, and that's two-way communication. So it's top down and then also bottom up. Remember, keeping employees engaged keeps them happy. It is much less expensive to keep and develop your current employees than it is to have to go find new ones. So back to what I said initially, our product at the end of the day may be a little different from the other teams. Our goal is to create guidelines for building and maintaining a positive work culture, sharing examples of positive work environments, either from our own organizations, from client organizations that we make work with, or other organizations that we hear about and learn more about, but sharing best practices at the end of the day. The hope is that these guidelines and examples will inspire even small changes that will go a long way in the eyes of the employee. Thank you.
So I just once again like to thank all of our team leads and really all of our team members. These were all volunteers who came together, and I can tell you it was really quite inspiring. I thought when we started to pull these together, we'd have very generic conversations. People would not be willing to share things because they considered them proprietary and the like. And really, I think we've got a good group of people who have come together across sectors to really try to move the needle on these 6 finding areas for the upstate. So I'm looking at my bosses and expecting that by tomorrow morning, Sam and I are going to have a charge to figure out how to get AI into all of this. But we are not limited to 6 implementation teams. So please, if you have interest in serving on a team, that may be one of the teams that's existing. It may be some new ones that I'm sure are coming. Based on the results of today, we would love to engage you in that work so that we continue this to be really a year-round effort and not just a coming together once a year to have some discussion and listen to some great speakers. And with that, am I turning it over back to Dr. Harris?
Let's give Jeff, Sam, and Kaleem Islam, who's not here, a round of applause for their leadership. Again, we thank you very much because the work, what Jeff and Sam did early on, they went to Chris and said, hey, let us just take the lead of this particular element of the program for implementation, because oftentimes we do this great work, and who's going to own it? Who's going to implement it? And so our College of Business and Economics, the George N. Johnson Junior College of Business and Economics, stepped up to do that and make it extremely collaborative. If you see one thing that I picked up throughout many of the presentations, how critical K through 12 is in all of this. How critical you are in all of this particular work, because who comes to the university and how do they show up is really the work that you do. So that's why I'm so appreciative to all of our 7 districts in Spartanburg County being represented. I think Union County has representation from its district. Greenville County has representation from its district. Who else we have? Do we have Cherokee County here as well? And so we just appreciate that. I do want to